All right, so Donnie Darko, huh? Um, I mean, everyone who's seen it's probably walked away with a million questions, right? And I think the ending is maybe like the biggest question mark of all.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
It's just so open to interpretation. Like, what was that look Gretchen gives Donnie's mom? Does she remember him? Does she remember that whole other reality? Or is it just, a random glance between two strangers? It's enough to make your head spin.
Oh, for sure. And what I think makes it even more fascinating is that the ending is just one piece of this much larger puzzle that is Donnie Darko, right? I mean,
Yeah.
like the whole film's about choice and fate and how those two things kind of intertwine and sometimes even contradict each other.
Okay, so you're saying Gretchen's look, it's like a clue to something bigger. Like, are we supposed to believe that parts of that tangent universe, that alternate reality Donnie creates, are they like still out there, even after it collapses?
I mean, it's definitely a possibility. It's one thing the film does so well. Like it never gives you a straight answer. Kind of leaves you hanging, you know.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps people coming back to it, debating it, trying to figure it all out.
Yeah, it's like the film is this giant puzzle box that you can never quite solve. But before we get too deep into the weeds with Gretchen and the ending, I think we need to back up a little and make sure we're all on the same page about the rules of this game.
Right.
So, remind us, what exactly is this tangent universe?
Okay, so basically it's a separate reality, like a branch that splits off from the main timeline, right?
Yeah.
And it all hinges on Donnie surviving that jet engine crash at the beginning of the film.
Right.
By avoiding what should have been his death, he kind of accidentally creates this unstable pocket reality, this tangent universe.
Okay.
And according to the logic of the film, this new reality is doomed to collapse unless the artifact, the jet engine, is returned to the primary universe within a very specific time frame, 28 days.
Okay, I think I'm following so far. So, Donnie's actions in the tangent universe, they ultimately lead to the jet engine going back in time and crashing into his bedroom, right? But how can he be both the cause and the solution? It's like a chicken or the egg thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. It is. It's a paradox. It's a closed loop where cause and effect are kind of tangled up in this really mind-bending way.
Right.
Like Donnie avoiding death in the first place is what triggers the creation of the tangent universe, which then leads to the events that send the engine back in time to kill him.
So is Donnie actually making choices here, or is he just kind of like playing out a script that's already been written for him?
That's the big question, isn't it? Like, is free will just an illusion in this scenario? And the film doesn't really give us a clear answer. We see Donnie making choices, but there's always this sense that he's being guided or manipulated toward a specific outcome.
Yeah, and that brings us to Frank, the guy in the rabbit suit. He's kind of terrifying, but also like strangely helpful to Donnie, even though he's leading him toward his own death.
Uh-huh.
Where does he fit into all of this?
Right. Yeah, he's definitely a complex character. And um, if we think about the idea of manipulated players in this whole cosmic game, I think Frank fits the description of what's called the manipulated dead in the film.
Oh, right,
You
right.
know, that whole philosophy of time travel book.
Grandma Death's masterpiece.
Exactly. So Frank can basically cross between realities
Mm.
because his death is already a fixed point in this tangent universe.
Okay.
He's kind of like a ghost with an agenda, but we never really know for sure what that agenda is or who's pulling the strings.
Okay, that is both super creepy and super intriguing.
Yeah. And then, of course, there's Gretchen, who's drawn into this reality that's destined to vanish. So when she sees Donnie's mom at the end, back in the primary universe, is she recognizing a familiar face from a life that, for her, technically never happened? Is that just like a weird sense of deja vu? Or is it something deeper? Is it grief? Is it a sign that pieces of the tangent universe are somehow bleeding through into the main reality?
Man, I've thought about that scene so many times, and it's like if fragments of that tangent universe do persist, does that mean parts of Donnie persist too, or are they just like echoes of something that's gone forever?
And those are the kinds of questions that make Donnie Darko so fascinating to talk about. To really start unpacking those questions, though, I think we need to dig into some of the film's symbolism, because I think there are a lot of hidden clues there that might give us a different perspective on everything we think we know.
Okay, so far we've talked a lot about these really big, complicated ideas, right? Like alternate realities and time travel and whether we actually have free will or, everything's already been decided. But as I'm listening, it occurs to me that Donnie Darko isn't just throwing these ideas around randomly. Like they're all connected.
Yeah, and that's where the symbolism in the movie comes in. Like,
Right.
the filmmakers definitely put a lot of thought and care into the details, the visual cues, all that stuff.
Yeah, right.
It's almost like they're speaking in this like secret language.
Yeah.
And if you learn to decode it, that's when you really start to see the bigger picture.
Okay, I love that. I love that analogy. But, like, how do we even begin to decode it?
Yeah.
What are some of the symbols we should be paying attention to?
Well, we already touched on one, which is water. If you think about it, there's water imagery everywhere in the film.
Yeah.
The flooded school, that rainstorm on Halloween, even Gretchen's name itself, like it has these connotations of water.
Whoa, you're right. I never really thought about it like that. Okay, so what's the significance of water then?
I think it depends on how you interpret it.
Okay.
But, water in a lot of cultures and spiritual traditions, it represents like a lot of different things,
Right.
like cleansing, rebirth, the flow of time. It's often associated with like the unconscious mind, emotions that are hidden beneath the surface.
Okay, so in Donnie Darko, maybe water is like symbolizing all those forces that are beyond Donnie's control, those currents that are pulling him towards his fate.
Yeah, exactly. And it also ties into that idea of the tangent universe being like unstable. Like water is never static. It's always changing, always in motion, just like the reality Donnie finds himself trapped in.
This is making me think about those visions Donnie has, like the premonitions. A lot of them are connected to water too, right? Like the vision of the school flooding.
Right?
What if those premonitions are like the universe trying to communicate with him, to warn him, to guide him, and the fact that they're often linked to water, it reinforces that idea of, these forces beyond his control shaping his destiny.
Right. Right. It's like the universe is whispering secrets to him through the rain, through those flooded hallways.
It's definitely creepy, but also like weirdly poetic.
For sure. And speaking of secrets, we can't talk about symbolism without talking about the philosophy of time travel. That mysterious book by Roberta Sparrow, Grandma Death.
Oh yeah, Grandma Death. Her book is practically a character itself, right? I mean, it's dense and cryptic, but it seems to have all the answers to this time travel game that Donnie's caught up in.
Yeah, for sure. It's like a decoder ring for the internal logic of the film. It introduces all these concepts like the manipulated living, the manipulated dead, the living receiver. It gives us a framework for understanding like what these different characters are doing and why.
Right, right. Okay, remind me again. Who are the manipulated living and the manipulated dead? It's been a while since I've brushed up on my Grandma Death wisdom.
So, the manipulated living, they're like Donnie, right?
Okay.
Individuals who are like chosen by the universe to ensure that the artifact, in this case the jet engine, it gets returned to the primary universe. They're the ones who like take action, sometimes even without knowing it, to set things right.
Got it. And the manipulated dead are.
Those who are like already dead in the tangent universe, like Frank.
Right.
But they can still interact with the living and like influence events.
Right.
They're bound by a different set of rules.
Yeah.
Their motives are a bit more mysterious.
Okay, so that explains why Frank is able to guide Donnie, even though he's, well, dead. But, like, why a rabbit, though? Of all the forms he could take, why choose something that's, on the surface seems so innocent, but also, like, kind of creepy?
Right, right, yeah. That's the question, right? That's a question that I think has been debated by Donnie Darko fans for years. And there's no easy answer, but rabbits in folklore and mythology, they're really interesting symbols. They often represent duality,
Okay.
Like they could represent fertility and new life, but also darkness, trickery, even death.
It's like the white rabbit in Alice in Wonderland, right?
Totally.
Leading Alice down the rabbit hole into this weird, unpredictable world. Is that what Frank is doing to Donnie?
Yeah, that's a really great connection. I think you could definitely interpret Frank like in his rabbit guise as symbolizing this unpredictable nature of fate,
Okay.
Like he's luring Donnie down a path that's both terrifying and necessary.
Yeah.
A path that like leads to his destruction, but also potentially to the salvation of the universe.
So Frank isn't evil then. He's more like an agent of chaos, a guide who's operating on a level we can't even comprehend.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And that's why he's such a compelling character, right?
Yeah.
We're never really sure whether to trust him, fear him, pity him. He's both a manipulator and a victim, caught up in this cosmic game just like Donnie.
This conversation is making me realize just how much is going on beneath the surface of this film. It's like an iceberg, right?
Yeah.
With so much hidden beneath what we initially see.
And we've only scratched the surface. I mean, like Donnie Darko, it has all these layers of meaning, And it makes you think about all these big philosophical questions about the nature of reality,
Right.
free will, the meaning of sacrifice, all of that.
Wow, this deep dive has been pretty wild so far. I mean, we've gone from talking about alternate realities and time travel to like rabbit symbolism and the meaning of water. It's a lot to wrap your head around.
Yeah, no kidding. But I think that's part of what makes Donnie Darko such a fascinating film, right? It doesn't shy away from these big questions,
Yeah.
and it definitely doesn't give us any easy answers.
Yeah, it just throws all these like existential dilemmas at you and then just kind of, leaves you to figure it out on your own. Like we've talked about how the time travel works and how the tangent universe collapses and all that. But for me, the big question is why? Why does Dunny have to sacrifice himself? What's the point of this whole cosmic mess?
Right. I think that question really gets to one of the core themes of the film, which is this tension between free will and determinism.
Mm.
Like, is Donnie really in control of his choices, or is he just a pawn in some grand cosmic game?
It feels like he's being pulled in both directions, right? Like, on one hand, he's rebelling against authority, he's falling in love with Gretchen, he's not just passively accepting his fate. But then, there are these premonitions, those messages from Frank. It's almost like the universe is like nudging him along a specific path.
Exactly, and that tension is never really resolved,
Yeah.
which I think is intentional. It's like
Yeah.
it's mirroring the uncertainty we all feel about our own lives.
Yeah.
Like, do we have free will, or is everything predetermined?
It's like one of those big philosophical questions that people have been debating forever. And here's Donnie Darko, this teen drama with a guy in a creepy rabbit suit, and it's and grappling with the same stuff. Maybe that's why it still feels so relevant all these years later.
For sure. It taps into those universal anxieties we all have, right?
Mm.
About choice, about fate, about what it all means. But what makes Donnie Darko so unique is that it explores those questions through this really like surreal and imaginative lens.
Mm.
It's using sci-fi and fantasy to talk about some very real human experiences.
Yeah. Yeah, like it's saying, hey, reality might be a lot weirder than you think. And you might not be in control as much as you think you are, which is kind of a scary thought, but it could also be liberating in a way.
Yeah, definitely. And that brings us to another big question that I think the film is asking. What is reality anyway? Like, is there just one true reality? Or are there like infinite possibilities branching off with every choice we make?
The tangent universe almost feels like a metaphor for that idea, right? It's a glimpse into what could have been, what might still be happening in some other dimension. And then that final scene with Gretchen, that look on her face, it makes you wonder if like those other realities, do they leave some kind of mark, like some echo that persists even after they're gone?
Yeah, it's definitely a haunting image. And I think it speaks to the power of like human connection, right?
Yeah.
Even if Donnie and Gretchen's time together in that other reality was brief, it obviously had a profound impact on both of them.
Maybe that's what Donnie Darko is ultimately about. That even in the face of like chaos and uncertainty and even death, human connection still matters. It leaves ripples, it creates these like echoes that can be felt across realities, across time.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And I think it's a message that resonates with everyone, whether you're, trying to figure out the mysteries of the universe or just trying to get through your day.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Donnie Darko, we may not have all the answers or or any answers, really. In fact, we probably have more questions now than when we started. But maybe that's the whole point. Maybe the film's real gift is that it encourages us to, keep asking those questions, keep searching for meaning, even in the most confusing, paradoxical parts of life.
Couldn't agree more. Donnie Darko is a film that really sticks with you. It makes you think. It makes you see the world differently.
Yeah, and that's pretty amazing for, any film really. Well, thanks for joining me on this journey through the wonderfully weird world of Donnie Darko. And remember, keep looking for those rabbit holes, keep questioning everything, and keep diving deep. You never know what you might find.